Hello, I'm Ben. Today we'll be chatting with a very dear friend of mine, Jonathan Winandy. Jonathan, it's great to have you here.
It's great to have a friendly face on the phone, with the current events. It's nice. Thank you for having me.
So Jonathan Winandy is the CEO and founder of Univalence. Univalence is a big data consultancy based in Paris. So I think for a start, it would be good if you could tell us a little bit more about Univalence, about what the company does.
So I've been working in data for the past 10 years with many different projects and many different companies, and Events is the sixth company I'm currently doing, and we are providing advice, solution, and audits over what we call data engineering. So all the engineering works that target data infrastructures and data management and techniques for building, maintaining, and optimizing those infrastructures. So it's a bit different from data science, like the data science, which is the work of analyzing data and providing insight or advice based on the data. What we solve is more the access to data. So how can we make sure the data is stored correctly? Can a lot of the different part of organization can access the data? Can they extract value from the data? And we are making sure that the different clients we are working with are able to manage data as an asset.
So, right, because I see that, so going on your website, we can see that most of the clients that you have are quite well-established companies. They're fairly big. They don't really seem like tech companies themselves, but they seem like quite big. So what are some of the problems that they're often faced with that you help them solve?
So we have been working with tech companies too, that a pure player in advertising, for example, but we rarely reference them because, well, they are good at data and they needed help like a couple of years ago. But what our current clients are in different industry than the ad tech, so the advertisement industry. And the most problem they have is the integration of splitted data. So the data is splitted across like different systems. And with the new trend of having a lot of APIs and APIs around data, it's even more splitted than before. So the big challenge is to be able to gather the data and to make it available to existing services. So they have both engineering problem. So the data they have, so the different assets they have, is not manageable in a uniform manner. So it's not in the same place, but also an organizational problem. Since the data is valued as something you can use and you can make money from, they have huge organizational problem around data. Because data is very hard to share across the organization.
Yeah, so when you say organizational problem, is that mostly the source of the fact that all the data is siloed?
Well, it's one of the reasons. It's one of the reasons because most of the entities of big organization are looking for some form of autonomy, which makes sense. Like the more they are autonomous, the more they are able to provide value themselves. And so even within a large organization, you don't want all the sub entities to be constrained to existing platforms and norms. But also, the reason that the data are scattered across is because the needs are very different. So most of the digital company and company that are being digitalized have very specific concerns and features they want to develop. So they will develop product that gather that respond to those needs, and so they will consume and use data in what we call the OLTP, so in a transactional manner, and they will structure their application and platform for those needs. But they don't think about the potential opportunity they have with their current data. So we have also to fix or to re-engineer existing product that develop for other needs, so we can repurpose the data to do something else. So it's both an organizational problem, like they don't want to share and they want some autonomy, which is completely normal. And also an engineering problem is like those systems were designed for something specific, and we need to revalue their current design to repurpose the data.
One thing I often think about is how to tackle this. If it's just about starting from an organizational perspective, so making sure that the organization is set up to have potentially a centralized and a unified data strategy. If it's, first of all, from a technical perspective. And I often see organizations trying to solve things from a technical perspective, thinking that it's going to resolve all of their problems. But actually, most of the time is really around kind of changing the way the organization works. And even, I'd say, even in large corporation, about changing potentially the way bonuses are set for general managers or VPs, changing the way the organization work with the IT departments within those organizations.
So there are techniques, and maybe I should not talk too much about them, but let's talk a bit about it. The issue is the structure, the actual structure of management, and the actual structure of project development. The actual structure of management push manager to keep the value within their scope of control. So they want to keep the control on it, and even if the value is not extracted to the full value of the asset they have, they will keep the control on things. And that control is very difficult to break, because it might be justified for an existing business value. And the other problem is the data projects. They need to access to a budget and justification. And the problem is the valorization of data projects is very hard, because those are infrastructure projects. So to get the green light on the scope of a project, we will need to justify it. And to justify it, we need to find now the value of the data we are processing and the value we are providing to the organization, which is very hard at the beginning of the project or before the project. So we have trouble, and not only us, but all the different management we are working with, to provide a clear way to finance and to get control over the data. So to finance the data project and to get the control, I mean the access to existing data. So what is the issue is data projects are infrastructure projects. So it's like as if you build a road. It's very difficult to get the value of a road. Like you build a road from point A to point B. Well, you can count for the different access to this road, but it's very difficult to value each access.
No, definitely. I definitely see this. It's similar to kind of the situation of many IT departments within businesses, because they're very much seen as cost centers rather than value generation departments, and businesses often see them, but they lack the ability to associate them with actual value being generated for the companies.
Yes, exactly. And so we have that problem to the next level. So not only we could be seen as cost and not as value, but building an infrastructure is even harder to justify than just cost. So it's abstract, and until you need it, well, you don't see the actual value of it. So you have the value when it's running, and it's very difficult to justify. So those projects are being run. Sometimes it's opportunistic, like the organization want to be able to possess to be placed on different part of the spectrum of digitalized companies. So they want to have this kind of project running. So we can use that as an opportunity. Or you have management that understand the value of data as an asset, and then it's very easy to run those projects.
Trying to focus on let's say the good use cases. Do you have example of products where you've actually managed to show the value to the business, and products that you've put into production, and where actually the business was really able to understand the value of investing into infrastructure?
Yes, yes, but usually not at the beginning. So it took usually like 9 months to 18 months for the full value to be understood. So what we have been building usually is the data platform. Most of organizations have nowadays is a place where they gather all the data, and they use big data technology. So we were able to structure that and to provide tons of values and new use cases. So for example, what people call the DMP, so the data management platform, where you can have, for example, in ad tech, you have a profile of our users. You can see exactly what's going on in your product, even if you have millions of users per day. So we were able to solve that, and to solve the lead time for new needs. So if the marketing department is having a new ID in the morning, they can benchmark that ID on the data. So maybe 15 months of history in a couple of minutes. So we were able to provide that. So that reduced, when the project was fully set up, that reduced the existing costs of a lot of existing solutions. So we were able to remove existing solutions from the IT. So usually you have vendors that bill you like hundreds of €1,000 per year on things that provide specific analysis on piece of data or specific storage. And we were able to remove those solutions from the production. So we were also providing value by decommissioning and simplifying the IT systems.
So around reducing maintenance cost, and increasing ability. Okay.
So at the same time, we were reducing the maintenance cost and providing the full access to the data, and we optimize the lead time. So the lead time are very good. And so those are things that doesn't present as value for the business, but the value for the business is when you have hundreds of users from your organization that are depending of those platforms to provide value to the business. So you provide not only support but capability. So they are able now to do the analysis of the data.
So what are some of the critical capabilities that a traditional data infrastructure that you set up would offer to the business?
Usually what we do great, and when we are very good, is as managing existing the data application. So you have an existing database that was already there for the past 10 years, and we are able to provide new capability on this existing data with compatibility with the existing analysis. So let's say you have an existing database and you are able to do historical queries now. So once you set up the infrastructure, you're able to go back in the past, see things, compare the past to the current situation, and with high performance and high data density. So that is one extremely useful thing you can do with data platform nowadays, is to be able to access all the versions of your past data in the same at the same cost of the existing version. So that's one thing we are very good at, and it provides a lot of value for the business. Like they are able to do new analysis, and they are able to be confident about the data because they are not losing data anymore. So that's one thing, and it reduces a lot the cost of data infrastructure. Like you don't need to copy the data to make sure you have access to the past data. You don't need to do anything like that. Like you just set up a good data platform, and you get access to all the versions of your data. You don't need to transform the data in a new system. The other thing we do is for all the business pipeline, so all the process. So we apply techniques in data engineering that are derived from what is called process mining. So process mining is very close to the business process modelization, and we are able to analyze business process inside of the data pipeline, and that are the things that are killing it. Like, what we do is very good at that, and it allows the business to do crazy analysis of the different workflow, and that is, for example, very useful for fraud detection. Like if you are a business that is managing financial transaction, you need to be able to detect fraud as fast as possible. And when you have access to the different events of the process in a structured manner, you're able to be very fast at fraud detection, and you have new analysis capabilities.
What are some of the technical difficulties you're often faced with?
So there are two ways, or I mean, three ways we are doing intervention. So the two main ways we are doing intervention is so we are added to an existing team as a support, and we do coaching and team training, or we are doing audits. And the third way is we are doing architecture consulting. We help people structure their project before they sell the project to the management. So it's one of the third way, but we don't have any technical difficulty in architectural consulting because, well, we are not touching we are not touching the data, and we don't need to touch it to do the to structure and to help people provide a new architecture. Like we ask for different analysis before we start to do the consulting in that area. So when we are doing audits, and usually the audits are very short, like a couple of weeks maximum, we go to the organization. We need to have a functional desktop. So that is very hard to get in some organization. And then we have to have the access, and then we need to have an environment when we are able to design analysis and to run scripts. And we need to read like tons and tons of configuration files and code, and that that makes the audit intervention a bit crazy each time we are doing it. Like usually, like when we are doing it, we take a couple of days to rest after, because we are like we are having the eye that hurts, because we enter a new organization, we have to understand what they are doing. We have to understand all the different data store they have set up already, and to read like all the configuration, all the codes, and to be able to understand what's going on and how it could be structured in the future. So those are our technical thing that start to be very hard, because we need to understand what's going on without talking to someone that designed the system. So there are two reasons we are not able to talk to people when we do audit, because it could simplify a bit the problem. The first reason is those persons are not available anyway. They designed the system like months ago or years ago, and they are doing something else, and they might be working on some critical things. So we are not we usually don't have access to them. And the other reason is the team that is building platform and managing data at the given time is having a vision over what they are doing that is very different for the actual thing. So it happened during audit, like you do a meeting with the team and you talk about things, and then you look at the code and it's completely different from what they have been saying in the meeting before. So it's good to eat and digest those large code base and configuration and databases information ourselves, and then go back to the technical team and ask for additional information. So that's a lot of work for us, but it provides value at the end, because we're able to find breaking points and pain points that can be improved without changing everything.
Okay. Did you develop any specific tooling in order to facilitate this kind of auditing?
Yes and no. A lot of the audits, actually, we need to build a tool in place. So we have new problems, and we need to build new tools. So it happens a lot. Like, and actually, I spend a lot of time doing it, and that makes the approach more interesting. We have new problems. We need to develop new tools that are in between production and test systems. So we need to be able to run new analysis on production, but we had access to the production like a couple of hours ago, and things like that. So we are developing tools in an ad hoc manner. So we have new problems, we are developing tools. However, over the past few years, so over the past 5 years, there are things that we noticed happened a lot. So we started to push a couple of the couple of techniques we do into open source projects. So we have an open source development going on, where the different techniques we are using are being open sourced. For example, the data quality analysis, that we open source the core engine of the data quality analysis that we use in audits, and we use in the different pipelines we are helping with. And for the rest, we are more focused on assessing the methodology we are using. So every time we are facing new kind of problem, we consult like other experts in the company. So let's say like you have two of us that are going to a client, and they see something in production in that client that they don't understand. We have a specific channel that is used to talk about those problems and ask for other expert advice about it. So either expert in the company or expert outside of the company that are in the network. Like if we see something that is abnormal and we are not able to fully understand it, we are usually raising the problems. And when we start to do that, we are able to codify the methodology of our audits. So what are the checks we need to do? What is it with the checklist? So far we are mostly like building a checklist for different activities that are able to standardize what we do and to be sure we didn't miss anything.
Final question before we go. So if you had a piece of advice to the people viewing this video, what would it be?
Well, I may have two pieces of advice.
Yeah,
the first one is very simple. Oh, the thing that occupies us so much. So the first thing is lead time. Like the advice is always like focus on lead time. Like when you start something and it ends, it's not the consumer resources, it's not it's not the difficulty of the problem, it's the lead time at the end. The second piece of advice go with it is what actually was the key difference in the thing we did the past 5 years was the algebraic reasoning. So it would be a bit theoretical, but if I can give a simple example, is like you have to plan for the worst. You have to plan for things as if like everything breaks during the night, and you need to give the things back up, but at the same time you were not able to go to work because the main transport line were blocked at the same time. And once you start to plan for those things, like to plan for the worst, like things get way easier, and it starts to be better to work with your solution when they were designed for the worst case scenario, and you actually are able to sleep at night. So that's my piece of advice. I always plan for the worst. When it happens, well, you will have some satisfaction out of it.
Yeah, plan for the worst and hope for the best,
yeah.
As usual.
Yes, but really plan for it. Like we are really surprised that a lot of the current architecture that are being designed at clients, when we are on connected projects, we are on your supervision, are not planned for the worst at all, and it's scary because we know the worst will happen, and they let it happen. So it's very hard to stay around, like to see like when it's like you notice someone will crash or we break something and you cannot do anything. It's a very weird situation we have to work with often.
Well, thanks a lot, John, for your time and for answering questions. I wish we could spend some more time discussing about Univalence and how you solve those problems. But in the meantime, I wish you all the best.
Yes, thank you for having me, and let's discuss data like another time. Like let's take the time to discuss more about it. Like
sounds good. Cheers.
Cheers. Bye.